Hey folks, welcome to PRIMO NUTMEG. I am your host Steve, and as always, if you are a regular listener, please do like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on both iTunes and YouTube. On today's show, I have Dale Brown. He is the creator of the Threat Management Center in Detroit, Michigan, which is a non-violent security firm. And we have a really interesting discussion about the relationship between NGOs like his and the police. So please do stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. Well, Dale, I do want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. It's great to be here.
Definitely. So I've actually seen you and heard you on a lot of podcasts lately. You seem to be getting a lot of media attention. And I was wondering if you could kind of explain to the listeners why that is. Why are you getting so much media coverage? What makes your Threat Management Center so special?
Well, I would say the thing that separates us as an organization and makes us media worthy in a lot of people's minds is that we actually help people without hurting people. That'd probably be the best way to explain it. We actually create safety without making unsafe decisions. And we make we improve the quality of life of people through our educational training system and our men and women that go out and help people and protect them and keep them alive and safe. And we do it for free as well as for pay for those who can afford services.
So what makes this different than a different private security firm?
Well, first and foremost, what makes us different from any private security firm, number one, first and foremost, is we're not actually a security firm. What we do is partner with security firms, and we train their staff and their personnel in order for them to succeed at managing threats properly. And our personnel are hired by security guard companies to provide our actual methodology, which is the management of threat. And the management of threat consists of primarily three components, and that is deterrence, detection, and defense, all of which requires lots of training, constant training. All the good intention in the world don't mean anything in a situation where fear enters and then humans respond. So our training system is what separates us from anyone else in any other situation, is the fact that, and this is why we don't make the decisions that police and private police would make in situations of stress or in any other situation, is because we're trained specifically to create safe, nonviolent outcomes. And that takes a lot of training.
So where did you develop this philosophy or this understanding of how to settle these issues in a more non-violent way?
Well, the way that I developed the system was organic. It's from the streets. It's real life. The anti-kill philosophy that I extol now, that I teach, this system of preservation of human life under all costs, this came at a heavy cost of extreme ultra-violence as a historical path. I trained in martial arts all my life, trained in firearms since I was 6. For me, firearms and fighting, fighting on the ground, stand up, knife, pistol, shotgun, rifle, all these things are just part of my life, everyday life. Growing up in a military family and a family that afforded me martial arts training in different types of schools. I grew up in a college town called Ann Arbor, Michigan. So there wasn't any violence there. But when I got to be an adult and after I was an airborne paratrooper in the Army, I became a licensed private investigator. And I got a chance to actually learn a lot about how to communicate with people and understand law. So what I did was I created a school that teaches how to defend yourself using your hands, using a knife, pistol, shotgun, rifle, stand up, fighting on the ground, and leaving your shoes on, like in real life. And then also understanding law as it applies to you as a civilian, defending yourself, your family, your community, or your corporation. And so the cornerstone of the training system was in the fact that I actually ended up here in Detroit, on the east side of Detroit, where families were being harmed. They were being home invaded. They were being killed. The police were interested in prosecution for drugs, not prosecution for violence and crime, nor were the police interested in prevention of crime. That's not what their function is. They are law enforcers, which essentially is the enforcement of laws which have been broken. And of course, as you know, rape, robbery, and killing are the laws that no one wants broken for them and their families. So what I did was created a system and an organization eventually that supported what we all want and need in every community. And that is safety, free of predation. And that's why I call it threat management. It's a threat management system. Preventive threat management is what we call the training system itself. And the philosophy is the anti-kill philosophy, which developed in time from force-on-force conflict throughout the Detroit region and has been used even in Denmark. I've used it in other states, other countries. The training system works. It allows you to solve violent issues without violence and create conditions where people are not severely injured or killed.
So let's just run through a scenario. Let's say that you're at a bar and there's a couple guys that are really drunk, and then they start assaulting other people who are in the bar. How do you make sure that that settles down?
Okay. Well, first of all, you have competent staff that should have been there prior to the escalation. That's number one. Okay. You have to prevent the escalation. So so once you don't prevent something, it's like trying to fix your broken plumbing after you let it freeze in your home. So automatically you're starting from the rear of the situation. All right. So you let it escalate and you were jaw jacking or not paying attention when suddenly the 2 guys or 4 guys started fighting. Now what you have to do is you have to see if there's an aggressor. And if there's an aggressor, you have to physically go in and grab the aggressor and you have to restrain him and remove him quickly. You said they're already fighting. In the event that they're not fighting, you can actually go over there and talk to them and join the one that's the most aggressive and move him by using his elbows and maintaining elbow control. You can physically move him, dominate the ground, and stay positive with him by agreeing with him and by talking to him about what he's doing and agreeing with his side. So if he says, I hate these people, or I hate that guy, or, I hate this bar, you would agree with him and say, yeah, man, no, it's not you, it's this bar, it's that guy, it's not your fault. And then you start to explain to him how the police are already on the way and you don't want him to get arrested. And you find a way to bridge that gap so that he feels that you're on his side and that the best thing to do is to listen to you because you're helping him. Meanwhile, what you've done is de-escalated the violence and got him to stop attacking someone. Now, if he has injured someone, you're going to delay him so that because he has to be prosecuted for obviously injuring the other person. And you delay his exit that way by malingering, by talking to him. You don't have to use physical force to achieve your objectives 9 times out of 10. And when you do, we teach biomechanical techniques that allow you to dominate people without injuring them. So you can open hands, you can take people down. It's a form of probably the closest related martial art, traditional martial art, jiu-jitsu, that has been adapted for real life application. And jiu-jitsu is it's great in its current form and all the different forms. Just ours is different because it's based on real life situations times thousands of incidents. So when I started, I actually got a chance to test these things in real life situations here in Detroit against actual aggressors, not against guys having a bad day, not against guys who don't want to get along today. Necessarily, we had some of those instances, but many of those instances we dealt with for the first 7 years, for example, from 95 to about 2002, were extreme violence with gangs. And these gangs were motivated about killing us. They were not in any way trying to get away from us. And so, normally that would traumatize people. A lot of times we saw police officers fail to engage or they would leave the scene. In our situation, we could not. People had expectations of us, and I trained my staff to look at everyone as family. So if we left for our own safety, then we would leave people's family members at risk. So we never did that. We never abandoned a situation, even though we may be outnumbered 10-1. We still had to dominate the aggressive force. And these are violent aggressors. Let me be clear about the difference. They are not trying to get away from us. They were not trying to elude us and get out of a ticket. They came with the idea that they could beat us down to dominate the physical structure of nightclubs, for example, or apartment buildings in the case of neighborhood situations. And the idea was when they do this, they're going to make more money. Okay, so it's not like, they're just doing it just for fun. If they can get rid of us, they can dominate other groups. They can dominate the space, and they can sell things that are not necessarily supposed to be sold at the location, and they can inflict their will upon other groups of people, including individuals. We would stop them by physically interacting with them and force engagement. The police would not. The police would always come afterwards, and then they would say, maybe, if they care to engage, and ask for witnesses, you're asking someone to get their family killed. So imagine you did see someone get, shot, raped, robbed, whatever it was, and the police are talking to you. Well, if you have a wife, you have a daughter, you have sons, you have a grandmother, you have a mother, all those people are at risk right now. If those people that perpetrated that crime find out that you're talking to police, they're going to kill your family. And so that's why a lot of people don't feel like talking in urban communities, is there's no protection for the families. So they'll literally tell police, like, I know who did it, I'll tell you, but you got to help protect my family. And they're like, absolutely not. There's no protection. There's zero protection for a family. In fact, in many of the cases, 4 or 5 witnesses will be killed, and they'll come across the news as, and this happens in all different types of cities where there's African Americans living. You'll hear it as, black on black crime, or they'll say there was a firebombing. They'll say there was a fire in a house and women and children all burned up in the house. And that's all you hear. Like, wow, these people they live with bad heaters and electrical wires, but those are witnesses to crime. Those are people that are related to witnesses to crime, and in many cases, could it be sometimes a bad electrical thing? Possibly, but I can just tell you, quite a few of these are not accidents. They are actual retributions for testifying or preparing to testify against people. And in some cases, they're not even that. They're just people who are paranoid. In other words, they thought they were going to testify. The police will sometimes make people believe that someone's testifying, and then the person goes and kills people that would know, and the person they think is the one that actually did it, when they didn't do anything. They didn't tell. They're not going to tell. But Crime Stoppers and some other kinds of community service organizations actually set people up for death by accident, and or let's say by as a byproduct that's an unintended consequence. So imagine Crime Stoppers says, we'll give you money for information, and then they say, we got information, and the person knows there's only one other person knows it was him, and now he thinks that someone's going to tell, so he kills the other guy, and now he's got more death. And the truth is, the police didn't have anything. They just, the person was paranoid. And my point in saying all that is that this is a way to deal with a lot of real life issues, not theoretical TV, conceptual ideas. These are real, visceral things that affected people's lives, and we made a concerted effort to help keep them alive and safe. And to do that, I had to forget my entire suburban mindset. My whole world was turned upside down. Everything I thought about African Americans, inner city, and the police, and all that was all thrown away. I was completely wrong, and I had to relearn reality, from the ground up.
Well, on the subject of the police, I imagine that you quite frequently probably could come into conflict with them, where you're trying to de-escalate a situation, and then the police show up to de-escalate the situation, and I imagine there could be kind of a power struggle there, or they could see that you're kind of stepping on their toes, perhaps. Does that happen or not really?
Never, ever.
Oh, okay.
That's part of our training. Without the training, you can be in a shootout with police over nothing. Without training, you will be arrested with the criminals you're trying to protect people against. Without the training, you'll be fighting police officers more than you'll be fighting criminals. So you have to understand how the psychology of dealing with police works, just like dealing with criminals.
Well, could you give us a few examples of that? What does that really entail?
Okay, well, the extreme examples, we're covered in blood, and there's a person on the ground, they got blood on them, and they're complaining that we caused their loss of blood. They will then say to the police officer that arrives, help us, this is these guys, they hurt us, and we need help. The police officer will say, okay, what happened here? Before the police officer has contact with them, we will say, sir, may I speak? And then the officer will say, sure, come over here, because we just now uplifted the officer and made the officer feel as though he was in charge. We automatically put the officer in charge of the scene. And the officer then responds with, okay, since you've already established dominance for me, I, as a police officer, do not have to establish dominance upon you. Thank you. Now, you then stand next to the police officer on his non-gun side, facing the same direction as the officer, holding your head down and calmly speaking in a very soft tone, explaining how these violent people aggressed upon you. And then the officer's like, okay, little security person. And then they take our side every time. And it's in all jurisdictions in Canada, in different states. It's always the same. The violent criminals, they always would say, it's before video. Now we have video, so it's a lot easier. We don't have to do too much.
That's true.
Still video. But back then, when I first started, there was no video that you could readily, send and receive and that kind of thing. It was very difficult. So in witnesses, it's amazing how witnesses will lie. It's just always amazing, and people get things wrong. But the criminals that we were dealing with were very violent, aggressive individuals who believed that our niceness was kindness, our niceness and kindness was a sign of weakness instead of confidence. And that's what I learned, was how to change that behavior on our part to change their interpretation on the violent criminals' part. And that's how I was able to stop them from aggressing, causing us to make them bleed. So I had to change me in order to change the violent criminals, the violent predators. And so, I blame myself. So think of it like this. The Incredible Hulk TV show, when the Incredible Hulk would come into town, or the Incredible Hulk movies, he comes into town and he goes places. He's always this little nerdy scientist, and he's all opinionated and wants to help out. And, sometimes he's, kind of laid back. But generally what happens in every episode or in every movie, he's this laid back, nice guy, and then something violent happens, then he turns green and kills everyone. But if you just reverse that, if he was already green, came to town, had a conversation, showed up green already, and then was nice to people, violence would never have happened in any episode or movie. And so that's psychology. It's just how humans view that are predators. That's how they view opportunity. So if you present opportunity by showing them weakness up front, you entrap them. So I could say I'm a non-aggression practicing person, okay? I believe in the non-aggression principle. So what I do is I walk around, I act like I'm not armed, and I walk wherever I want, and I walk softly, and I dress in a very soft way. And then when people approach me, I act very, very weak. The predator child could be a 16-year-old, could be a 12-year-old, could be some redneck kid, could be some spoiled rich kid, could be some inner city thug, doesn't matter. Could be just a regular middle-class kid. If I project enough weakness, they'll actually try to put their hands on me, possibly. The bully kid from the suburbs, it doesn't matter if his parents went to college and have college degrees and have a good job. I'm projecting so soft and so weak that I can actually make him aggress on me. And so my non-aggression principles actually creating the conditions because I'm violating basic human principles of psychology. I'm saying to this other human, I am weak. I am an opportunity for you. You could damage me. You could dominate me, and I won't do anything to you. And I'm showing you that up front. Then when the human tries, I dominate them and shoot them in their brain. So it's a choice. I can flip that around and say, you know what? I'm going to project strength. I'm going to still be positive and not challenging and aggressive towards people, but I'm going to be aggressive, positive, and greet people, take the ground, walk up to strangers. If someone's walking up to you at a gas station, a gas pump, and they're assessing you, which is what criminals do, instead of trying to run away, you go towards them and you shake their hand. You take that dominant hand, which is their right hand, you put in your hand, and you greet them very loud, very aggressively, with your head forward. And what that tells the predator is you're not a good target. There's something wrong with you. You're too confident. They didn't see your gun. They didn't see your knife. They didn't see you fight. They just know that something's wrong. You're just not projecting enough weakness. And they will simply pick a new target, even if they were there to rob you. And you didn't shoot them. You simply took the ground, went to shake their hand, and aggressively greeted them in a very positive tone. You didn't disrespect them. And this is what we use, this is what we teach. And so we're not talking about theory. So you got a lot of people on the internet, a lot of people on YouTube that have all kinds of concepts.
Sure.
We're in Detroit, America. Not Detroit, Iowa or something. Detroit, Michigan. Okay? It works in the inner city, and it worked after lots of bloodshed. In other words, we had empirical results, and we modified our behavior over a 20-plus year period to create the system we use now. So from ultra-violence, where we would kick and stomp and bring more magazines with more um, firepower, superior firepower with more frangible ammunition, into a situation where, now we don't use fatal force firearms. Completely committed to non-lethal
use like rubber
technology.
bullets or something.
We use all types of non-lethal technology. So we have everything from air grenades to pepper grenades to smoke grenades to that don't actually grenade. They're just releasing
Sure.
Either smoke or pepper or air in a very hostile, in a very loud way. So you think it's a big explosion, it's just air. And the idea is to, under different circumstances, we have to create a diversion or to disrupt someone's violent tendencies. And these are very rarely used. And that's because when you project strength, the predator, human being, is automatically defeated. Okay, they're very weak. Predator humans are looking for opportunity. When you deny that opportunity psychologically, they lose their belief systems, support aggression. So the psychology that we teach is about how to create the condition where you don't have a violent outcome, which means you don't have an adversarial interaction. And that deals with the fact that it's not personal. You talk to them, you stand next to them, you agree with them, and you support their side, even if it's crazy. So when a guy says to me that President Obama gave him a house, and it's his surgeon's, 7,000 square foot house, I don't sit there and go, "Stand up, sir. Show me your hands." I go over there. "Oh, Obama gave you his house. It's a great house. I'm glad Obama gave it to you." And he says, "Why? I'm actually 27, but my identification says I'm 18. I mean, I feel good for an old man, but and so that's why I'm resting here on my new porch." And I said, "I understand, young man. And you know what? Let's walk over here so these people can't hear us talk. People that actually live in the house." And so we walked down the street together, and the situation was solved within about 1.30 seconds. 1 minute, 30 seconds, the whole situation solved. We're off the ground, the people, the family's safe, the family feels secure, and they're very happy, and there's no bloodshed, no beatings. I said, "You know what, young man, it's cold out here. I'm going to go get my vehicle, and I'm going to transport you because you look like you're cold, and it was cold outside." He was like, "Yeah, thanks." I said, "You stay right here, okay? I'll be right back." So we got my truck, and I took them to the police station. No handcuffs, no takedown, no. Do I have them? Yes. Do we flex stuff them? Yes. Can I take them into custody? Yes. Trespassing? Yes. Can I tackle him? Yes. Can I shoot him when I say he reached for my gun? Yes. I can articulate or test a lie as much as I want to and kill as many people as I want to. Or I can find a way to preserve his life, which starts with the way that I interact with him moment one.
And that is wonderful, and I think that a lot of the news stories that have gotten a lot of media attention in the past few years are about these specific instances of police officers being a little too aggressive and, shooting an unarmed person or shooting a person when they're not able to reach their gun that's in their pocket, or, these different examples. It sounds like you've kind of perfected a security safety system here, a threat management system. And I'm curious why it would be that police who have been doing this for so long aren't operating more in the mindset that you've crafted in just a few years.
Well, number one, they have no impetus to do so. There's nothing that suggests they should. We have given them nothing but a negative metrics, and then we expect police to come out with something positive. We said, "Hey, how many rapes, robberies, and killings, arrests did you have for drugs? And then if you get drug arrests, we'll give you more money from the federal government, and we'll do all kinds of things for you, give you some more support, some more anti-terrorism money, all kinds of foolishness for negative outcomes." We're rewarding for negative outcomes to law enforcement and saying, "Where's our positives?" Well, if you wanted positives, you should have said to the police, "If we have less arrests, get more money." Now, that's called protective policing. And in the 1920s, that was tried. And the federal government found that it doesn't work because there's no metrics, no measurement. Well, I believe the measurement is in your quality of life. Your quality of life becomes your measurement. When you don't have rape, robbery, or killing, your property value goes up. You sleep well at night. You're able to go to work, be a more successful person. Police don't commit suicide. Police are less stressed. Police don't kill people because they're in protection mode.
So we would have to build a new system for police to enter into protection mode versus prosecution mode. And that is called putting prosecution after protection, protection over prosecution. And that will be a new philosophy, which is actually an old philosophy. They actually tried it in the 20s, like I said. You can look that up on online as well. There's lots of writing about that back in the day. They were just, obviously you can't have a society where you're targeting all you people that are paying your taxes. So you got to do that. You can only do that in the urban environment. You can't do that all over the place. And where you're seeing these flips is they're taking that philosophy they've been using on African Americans, for example, in the inner cities and small towns where there's African Americans, and then they're using, and they were doing it in poor communities where European Americans were living, what they call white trash people. They were abusing those people out there in country towns and out in the country. And so, now what they're doing though is they're hitting middle class areas with the same philosophy. And the middle class people, they're not going to go for that. These are college educated people. These are prudent people. They are intelligent and they are resourceful and they have resources. They are not going to allow that kind of behavior for them and their communities because they realize it's counterproductive. It's actually counterproductive for police to put prosecution before protection as well. So at the end of the day, it's a negative for everyone. When you focus on prosecution, and that's what we're doing in all African American cities. So example is they persecute the people who live here. Your taxpayers typically left, which meant that Detroit had no tax base. And of course, the businesses left as well because they're not getting preferential treatment either. So the business community and the citizens were both not getting anything but persecution. Their employees getting extra tickets, writing lots of tickets. This concept of generating two separate incomes, one from tax base and the other from torturing the people with all kinds of tickets. Well, that does not work. People that are upwardly mobile financially, they will move. Now, the rich, they'll stay here and they just call their friends in different departments and have those tickets nullified. Okay, so they'll just stay here and you just don't pick on wealthy people in Detroit and other major cities, whether they're African American or not. If you mess around with wealthy people or connected people, police officers know that their tickets will not go far and they put their career at risk. So they're looking for poorer people in whatever community, whether it's African American or European American, and they're harassing them knowing that this would be acceptable. Now, why would they do this? It's not because police officers are evil or bad people. They're regular people. A lot of them are young guys, and they wanted a rites of passage psychologically. We all want that as human beings. So women, it's, getting married, having a baby, going to college, getting a good job. Men, it's going to war. Men, it's being a police officer and being in a shootout. And being in a war, it doesn't mean being in the military. If you're in the military, you didn't go to war, that's called being Hollywood. All right? I was an airborne paratrooper. I didn't go to war, so I'm called Hollywood. I'm not a real airborne war paratrooper because I didn't jump into Iraq or Afghanistan and kill families. So, therefore, I'm a Hollywood paratrooper. A real soldier would have an airborne tag and would actually go to war and jump. Even if you jump, you could just jump where, there's no fighting. It doesn't matter. As long as you jump there, you're now a combat paratrooper. And now you have not just bragging rights, but what you have is you have a rites of passage. You are now relevant. You now, psychologically, you matter. And, we're looking at police officers who have no rites of passage. They're 20, 22, 23, 24. I mean, where's the rights of passage? How do they become a man? How do they have, and this is psychological, this is basic psychology, all humans must have, must become self-aware and self-validation is what is called psychologically. Self-validation comes after you've experienced things. So that rites of passage, which would be a shooting for a police officer, is not something they don't want. That's what they're supposed to say. I don't want a shooting. And because that's like the cool thing to say, like, oh, I don't want to shoot anyone. Okay, but everyone knows when you shoot someone, you're now automatically a real cop. You're the real deal. Okay, so now your woman contact goes better because the women always ask, like, have you ever been in a shootout? And you don't have to say to the woman, like, oh no, or make up a lie. You get to say, yes, I was in a shootout. I was very dangerous. And now, the girl connection is tighter and, you get more women that way. And so, this is a very real conversation. A lot of people don't want to hear this, but I deal a lot with training cops over the past 20 years. I've employed over 100 police officers on my staff, and I've fought next to many police officers, and I've rescued police officers in situations and I've helped subjugate people and save their lives from police officers in real life situations. And if I was not there,
how have you done that? That piqued my interest there. How did you do that?
On multiple occasions. In one situation, a female was attacking police officers, and I was able to take her into custody in a way that meant that it could stop beating her. And if I did not do that, I'm quite sure her skull would have been damaged, if not killed. And what's interesting is that she was the mayor's. She was related to our mayor, and these officers almost lost their jobs. Jeez. So I actually saved the police officers' jobs by going in. I actually had to intervene twice, and the officers were in a situation with a very small female, and she was very violent and aggressive, but, like violent and aggressive at 102 pounds is just not scary. And the officers were trying to be nice, but they don't have the training. The other thing is that people are blaming the officers, but the officers weren't given the training to not hurt people.
Sure.
They weren't shown. How do I subjugate someone? How do I take this woman into custody?
Have any officers joined your program, or have you had any discussions with the city or the state? I've
had over 100 officers.
Oh, okay.
Work for me, and we do presentations with law enforcement.
That's great.
We also act as op forces. We pose as terrorists, and we also train with FEMA police programs. We are truly NGO, though, so we do not in any way receive money from law enforcement, accept money from law enforcement. However, we do give them free training. Any law enforcement officer can receive free training. I would train a department in our tactics, but we do not receive any money for any work with any law enforcement agency outside of training.
Okay. Well, going back to, our national issue with policing, these shootings are becoming a lot more played up in the media. They're getting recorded because everybody has cell phones now. People are constantly posting their interactions with police. You have organizations like Cop Block that try to publicize, different issues that people might have with police. You have groups like Black Lives Matter who are trying to get the African American community to stand up against racist police brutality against the African American community. You have police militarization, where cops are getting more military weaponry, and that was seen after Ferguson. So I'm just curious, how do you see this really getting fixed? Do you see it as more federal oversight? George Soros actually. Breitbart just broke a news story the other day that he's trying he's lobbying for more federal oversight of local police departments.
Well, that's important. The key is having federal intervention. Really, the entire system is really, really backwards. So when you talk about militarization, that's not an issue. It really isn't. It just seems like it. It really isn't. Actually, if more officers were dressed heavily, they would move a lot less because they'd be hot and tired, and you'd have a lot less violence with officers because it's just a lot harder to move around in your level 3 body armor. And so you see a lot less incidents of interaction. The police officers would be safer and therefore more confident. And psychologically, it seems like, when you're dressed like that, then you want to go fight people. Not really. And actually what happens is it slows them down. It really sucks your energy out of you. So they're getting tired. Especially the warmer it is, the worse it is for them. It's like 150 degrees inside that armor, and so you're talking about really slowing down.
Sure, but I guess more generally. I mentioned that thinking more of the frequency that SWAT is being used, to raid houses for.
No, SWAT has always been used a lot. It's just that what you're hearing about is a transition. SWAT normally 99.99% of the time doesn't have any shooting. That's why you don't hear about it. You hear about the ones where they shoot. It's very rare. They're deployed all the time. They don't shoot because they surround the place. People come out, and they give up, and that's it. Now the ones you're hearing about are these guys that they're making up their own thing. Law enforcement's not federally oversaw. There's no federal oversight.
And you believe that there should be.
Right, exactly. Then you could say, okay, police officers have to have this. There is no such thing as police officers have to have X, Y, Z. No officer in America is required to have certification to be a police officer with red and blue lights pull people over. That's what your jurisdiction, your municipality decided. There are many that make you a constable. They call you police and down south and put police stuff in your car, and you are the police officer for our, whateverville. And there's no requirement. But when they find out you arrested people wrongfully, or when their lawyer, brings up in court that you have no training, that's how there becomes a problem, in a lawsuit scenario. That's why you send officers to the police academy. There's no requirement that they have to do this. In fact, Detroit had a police chief that wasn't certified, I think, currently. And we actually had one police chief that had a domestic violence, so many domestic violence charges, he couldn't even carry a gun. So this concept that police are under some kind of like structured, this must be, that's not true. Each department makes up its own rules. Those rules are totally subjective. You have some officers that have felonies, they're on the job. They're on drugs. There's officers on drugs. That's why there's unions to protect them from prosecution. The problem is that there's some really good officers out there. The problem is that they're in a system that's designed by individuals who are lower performers, who are trying to not require change and evolution because they hate it, because we all as humans hate change. And the dumber the person, the more you hate change. It's just natural. So it doesn't matter what you're talking about, sports, firefighting, school. You go in there and say, well, we should have our classroom with circular desks and in a circle. And they're like, this is stupid. So they don't have a bell, that's training children to be industrial servants, slaves. So these concepts for the new age-minded people are fine. The problem is most humans do not like change. And so when you're asking officers to make rules and structure plans and ideas, that's old people making plans for the new people, which inherently is going to be flawed. The new technology is here. The new people, the new way of thinking. It's completely new now. There's a new world here, and the old guys are in charge. And unless you're one of the adaptive new old people, it's going to be very hard for you to even understand the new people. So imagine, before you get into what department's bad and what department's good, or police officers are evil, or police officers good people, just remember you're dealing with human psychology. And that human psychology has certain rules. When we have people in positions of power that were not based on performance, but instead based on cronyism and nepotism and likeism, right? Popularity contests. You became the sheriff, not because you're really good at something, because they like you. They like your name. They like your cowboy hat. Now you're the sheriff. You got voted in. So doesn't mean you're good at anything. So, the reality is, where's the performance-based agenda for football players and baseball players? Well, you can't be on the team if you can't perform. But if you don't do that in law enforcement, you got a guy with a gun, you got a guy with authority, a badge, and absolutely no way to determine whether or not they can perform the tasks. There's no performance-related skill set required to be a law enforcement officer. So until you change that basic fundamental, which is performance first for law enforcement, the only thing you can hope for is that federal law enforcement comes in and begins to be more proactive about oversight. And what we can do with that is at least mitigate some of the ridiculous behavior, right? But the truth is, you need a performance-based system. You got to pay police officers an extraordinary amount of money to get the most talented human beings possible, okay? And the reason why is because these people are deciding who to kill or not based on a feeling. Think about this. They're deciding, like, you know what, I think you just moved for something. I think you didn't move. I think you're trying to do something. I think you're not trying to do something. And that thought determines whether they shoot you or not. That needs to be the smartest person in the room. I mean, I want that guy to be like a scientist mixed with a pro football player.
Sure. Makes sense.
And if you can't run down the street and play football, I don't want him going out and having a heart attack, trying to chase down some kids and tasering a little girl because she won't go to school and her skull get tased. Because the 77-year-old sheriff in her country town wanted her to go back to school, and he was running and tased her skull. I don't know if you saw that story. She was outrunning him. She's 14. 14-year-olds can outrun 77-year-olds. And this 77-year-old, 300 pounds, 6 feet tall, this officer couldn't, he's probably having a heart attack just running after the little girl. He tases her in her skull, and, now, she has brain damage, all because she didn't want to go to class. So, that officer is also a candidate for suicide. As he realized, man, I got granddaughters. He didn't mean to tase her in her head. He didn't mean to give her brain damage. But imagine how he feels looking at his daughters, his granddaughters, and realizing, I damaged a little girl's head. You know what I'm saying? So what we have to do is change the performance standards, change the whole concept of what law enforcement is, create safe law enforcement agencies, safe law enforcement officers that are focused on the prevention of death, prevention of violence, and putting prosecution secondary to protection. And that will be the foundation of a sound, safe society that can appreciate law enforcement and police officers the way they need to be. And we can have a very successful society doing that.
So it sounds like you're saying it can be fixed, like the federal government can come in and fix the police departments of the United States. And now
They've been doing it a lot. I mean,
but so you have a private organization that's doing that in your community. And a lot of the podcasts that I've seen you on, I think kind of the agenda of the host has been that because you are a private organization, you're doing it in a way that a government institution can't. So I'm sort of curious, how do you see the relationship between an organization like yours, an NGO, and a government institution, the police themselves?
We are an absolute asset to them. Absolutely. That's why they support us. The chief of police here spoke directly to a crowd of very supportive people who were excited to know that we got the crime in their communities down to below suburban standards, without any violence, without any court dates. And a judge had recently been shot in an area that we don't protect. That community uses an off-duty police officer to protect their community, and for whatever reason, they're not hiring us. And the reality is, the asset side of, and this is why we're able to exist. Law enforcement gets all the credit for having the crime stats that are very low. We created for them; it cost them nothing. They all their resources get to be redirected away from our community to other communities, so they get more of whatever it is they want to do, while we handle this. And we're a headache. We take a lot of headaches off of them, because a lot of our communities deal with like judges, lawyers, politicians. So imagine if they get raped, robbed, or killed in their home, the law enforcement community is under extreme heat. So we remove that heat because we keep all those people very happy. And when they're happy, the police department's happy. So the police department watches our back as a result. They're very, very supportive of us. They do not harass our staff. They're very supportive on scene, very positive. I don't know what kind of jokes they crack when we're not around. But when we're standing there with police officers, they're very, very positive, very helpful to us.
So when
now, that was the case. In the 90s, that was not the case. In the 90s, police were a bigger threat to us than the violent criminals. They were trying to interfere with me. They tried to stop me all the time. They were harassing me and my staff.
And they probably would to a new organization in any community, right? I mean, you probably just have been there for a while now.
Yeah, well, what happened was I wouldn't stop. I just wouldn't stop. And the police officers, their whole thing was more ego than anything real. And then they're also related to criminals. So a lot of times people don't understand this. If I grew up in a country town, or I grew up in a city, and then I became a police officer, I still have my friends and my frenemies and my enemies, and girls I liked and didn't like me, and girls that, beat up my girlfriend and whatever else, all those personal things, and professors and high school teachers that I didn't like, that didn't like me, and they're driving down the street and I can harass them now. And when my cousin has a problem with his neighbor, I can go over there and use my badge to, get him in line. And as a police officer in this country town or in this city, if you beat up my son, if your son beats up my son, I can go over and kick the shit out of you and your son, and you can't do anything to me because my brothers in blue will not help you. If I beat the shit out of my wife or girlfriend or daughter, then there's nothing you can do because I'm blue in this town, and this is my town.
Right.
So then this is a pervasive problem. This is super huge. It's not. 75% of the police department walked off when Hurricane Katrina hit, and I came down to Hurricane Katrina that first weekend that it happened. They thought we were federal agents or something. I don't know. They thought we were in charge, and we were very helpful to law enforcement down there. Our purpose, though, was to be helpful to the people. Okay, so law enforcement kind of commandeered us, but we were there for the families specifically. And I was always very direct. Yeah, we're here for family safety. We're here to help. They just could not hear me. They're like, yeah, we're gonna. One set of Mississippi State troopers, they told me we're stacking them like firewood. In other words, they were there shooting people at Hurricane Katrina, and he was telling me this to my face. And I'm there to help the people he's stacking like firewood. And so I tell you that to say that your perspective of purpose is just as important as your protocols, procedures, and standard operating procedures that are documented. Your perspective of purpose. What do you think your purpose is? And so what I do is I train my staff to believe that every person we come across is a person that's just like someone in your family. So if you have someone in your family that's, was drunk or got drunk, someone that was on drugs or got on drugs, someone that had a mental problem, someone that got old, someone that's very young, someone that did the dumb thing. What would you want someone to do to your family member in that same situation? And that's exactly what you should do to someone else's family. The same thing. You don't want to be beating up your sister who's acting crazy one day, threatening or whatever. She's drunk or high, or maybe she's just having a bad day. So you want people to be very patient. You want people to look at family. Would you kill your brother because he pulled out a knife? No. You go tackle your brother, take his knife from him, and say, man, stop playing. Stop acting crazy.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're just, it's so, and I know police officers that tackled other police officers who were drunk and had knives or guns, and they didn't kill the cop. They go over and tackle him, take the gun from him, and stop from making a horrible mistake with their life. And so you can look at people's family, or you can look at them as a target, and that's a choice. And many officers every day make the decision to look at people as family, and that's why they don't have this problem.
Right.
The problem is when certain officers don't do that, and it makes the media.
Certainly.
So imagine 1,000 people were arrested, only one person was, shot while handcuffed. Well, that one person getting shot while handcuffed is horrible.
Right.
It's not okay.
And I know people who would say that actually is a symptom of government, though, because you're kind of elevating certain people and giving them certain rights and privileges. So, I mean, this really kind of brings me back to, I guess, an earlier question. If your community, if Detroit said, we want to totally privatize the police now, we're going to get rid of the government police, and we're going to start letting individuals like you create their own police forces. How would you react to that? Would you say that that's a bad thing because there needs to be a government police?
I would say, first of all, it's insane, number one. That's completely insane. Number two, I would be offended they call me police. I'm not police. I don't do policing. I never wanted to police people. I only wanted to help them and protect them. Protection is not policing. Law enforcing has almost nothing to do with protection. Secret Service never runs around giving out tickets. When you see Secret Service, when the president comes down, Secret Service runs up with a thing and it starts writing tickets to people. That never happens. Okay, protection is protection. Law enforcement is to maintain law and order. Okay, and then if you grow up in a bubble or you experience a bubble, I'm running into a lot of intelligent people on the internet that support us, and that's nice. But these people live in a bubble. They're middle class, upper middle class. They talk to other middle class, upper middle class people. They live in an upper middle class neighborhood, and they grew up there in a similar type of place. And, that's where they go. So in their world, their world is a bubble. That is not in any way related to the other bubbles of the world, which are much larger. Mm-hmm. Okay? So the country towns are not the same experience.
Let's flip the question then. Let's flip the question then, because this past week there was some protests for the Dakota Pipeline extension, and there was a big news story that the private security there got into a confrontation with the protesters, and there was dogs biting people. So, I also know a lot of people who would say, we shouldn't have any private security. When you have these private organizations that are taking over government jobs, essential government. This is a bad thing. So you look at Blackwater, that's terrible. Or if you mentioned a private security force going in after Katrina, they would be really terrified about this prospect, and they would probably say, these organizations should be outlawed. So what would you say? What would your response be to that?
That one, I don't know if I say the word outlawed, but I definitely would say not encouraged. Listen, I have an organization that's multicultural, deals with every kind of religion and race of people, ethnicity, males and females. My organization is based on altruism. Our mission is to make the world safe, not to make money. If I put money first, we would be evil, okay? We would be an evil organization, an evil empire. All I got to do to make evil happen is to simply put the money first. I never put money first. I don't care about money. The moment my clients find out that I care about money and I put money first, the abuse will begin. And they know that I have extremely high core values that I will not violate, and I'll lose money to make that happen. And no one does that. Okay, no one's just say, "Oh, go ahead and take $250,000 from me," which I did one day. I told the client, basically, fuck off. It's cost me $250,000 because he wanted me to do something that I knew was going to lead to violence. And he knew it too. He kind of didn't mind us dominating and hurting people because we always win. And so I told him, we're not doing that. We're not going to make a rule that you want us to enforce as a private person on private property, which we can do, which, by the way, is legal. Everything he's asking us to do is legal. What it's going to produce, though, is ultra violence. We are going to have bloodshed. We will be shooting people down, and it absolutely is going to happen. And I know that because I've been doing it for years at the time. And so I told him, I said, no, we can't do that. We can do it slowly. We can implement your rules slowly so that we don't have a shock and all scenario where individuals respond violently and we have to end up hurting them and or killing them. He said, you do what I tell you because I'm paying you. And I said, sir, I will not do that. He said, then I'm firing you. And he did. And he was out of business a year and a half later after a bunch of lawsuits and injuries and deaths. Police actually got beat up there at this location because my true staff was not there. A lot of my ex-workers tried to fabricate my company. I've had over 30 people try to start their own companies like mine. In their mindset, like certain ones, they just different rules. Like we don't have to train so much. Another guy says, well, we can hit on girls. Stupid rules commander has. I run a very strict operation. You can't hit on people while you're on duty. You'll get your money taken.
Good rule.
So, yeah. There's no hitting. You want to meet girls? You meet them off duty. And so I run that's why a lot of cops wouldn't work for me. No drinking, no meeting girls. They have an attitude too. Like, wait a minute, I can't meet a girl. Can you give out my number on the job? No, we don't do that. They could not accept that. What got us good favor with cops, though, believe it or not, was no matter where we worked, every police officer got in for free at all kind of nightclubs that we worked at. And that's how cops became our friends, actually. It was not because we were like, oh, look, those guys help the community. Cops could give a shit less. What they liked was, quite honestly, we let cops into every environment. No matter what the client said, the client would say, no, cops pay. We're like, yes, sir. As soon as cops come up to the door, we let them in. And they knew that any place we worked, cops got in for free. This, in turn, endeared the police to us. And this is the lower level cops, regular cops, beat cops. Those beat cops are now in charge of the police department here in Detroit 20 years later. And they have incredible respect for me and my organization. They are the ones now in charge. And they would see us fight gang members. We fought gangs. We were like beating up like a guy that didn't want to pay his, bill par tab. We were dealing with gangs, groups of guys, 20, 30, 50, sometimes as many as 80 to 100 men that would come and attack in a location here in Detroit. These gangs were used to dominating. The police would always come after, maybe 30 minutes to an hour after the attack of the people, and they would attack not gangs; they attack regular people. This is not a TV show. This is not The Wanderers. This is not those old gang movies. Here's the truth: gangs do not hurt other gangs; they hurt regular people. That's why they're still gang members. Think about it: if gang members run around hurting each other, they run out. Right? Sure. So what they're doing is they're raping, robbing, and killing regular people at 10 times the rate of injuring other gang members. Okay.
Just on the subject of gangs, I'm sorry. I just want to ask this last question. How would you feel about ending the drug war? What if marijuana and even other drugs were decriminalized tomorrow? Do you think that would limit violence in our society? Absolutely.
I think limiting that and if alcohol is legal, everything should be legal. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you wouldn't have ever heard someone smoking anything and then dying from it. You can't smoke crack and die. It's impossible. Flavor Flav said he smoked $1 million for the crack in 1 year. And he said he knows for sure you can't die. I already knew that, though, because I know crackheads here in Detroit, they are still alive right now. They smoke every day. So you can drink alcohol and kill yourself today, no matter who you are. And if alcohol, we have never fought crackheads. We have never fought heroin addicts. We have never fought people smoking weed. Everyone we've ever fought is drinking alcohol. A doctor, a surgeon, threatens to blow up a place and bit a hole in one of my men. We have choked out professional athletes that have $8 million contracts. It's unbelievable. Mekhi Phifer. I can't say that. Someone who looks like Mekhi Phifer was filming a movie called 8 Mile, just like that guy. Had to get dealt with because he wanted to do something, and then had a sheriff working for him and off duty. And I mean, so my point is that absolutely the drugs, the laws pertaining to anything other than violence are ridiculous. And so that's what's creating these problems. So focusing on who sells drugs, who sold drugs, who bought this, who smokes that, who drunk that is insane. And that's the core of our problem. Once we reduce that, a lot of our problems will go away. In fact, if I was in charge of the prison system, every single criminal would have to smoke weed to stay free. And if I found out that they did not smoke weed today, we put them back in jail when they're safe. Because nobody who smokes a bunch of weed robs any banks, okay? Anybody who smokes a bunch of weed, here's what they do. They might plan to smoke. They might plan to rob a bank. But it was never going to happen. They're never going to, after eating and sleeping, taking the munchies, and they're going to take a nap, they're never going to break that cycle and go rob the bank.
Very true. Well, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, but we are out of time. I just want to ask you finally, is there any kind of misconceptions out there about your organization that you'd like to clear up?
Yes, we work well with law enforcement. We are not a replacement. We don't enforce laws. When people have loud music, when they have dog barking incidents, when people are misparked, that's between you and the police. That's not something you call us for. You call us when you think someone's trying to rape, rob, or kill you. The police are only responders to those kinds of things. We're actually going to stay with you. We're going to create a condition where they don't believe they can hunt you, and we're going to keep you alive and safe. The police are doing the best they can to respond to situations which have already happened, and what we do is create the conditions where they don't happen. They're not related subjects. If I did what police do, if I waited for everyone to get raped, robbed, and killed, and I arrested every person who raped, robbed, and killed people in the community, I would be fired. Because nobody wants to hire a company that's still getting paid while people are being raped, robbed, and killed. Even if everyone gets caught, you're still going to go to prison. You're still going to get fired. The point is to not have these incidents. And that's a completely different subject than the enforcement of laws, which is what police are tasked to do. We need less police officers. We need a lot higher caliber. So we can take the number of cops we have now, reduce them by 50%, 75%, and pay the great officers $100,000 plus to start. So they're making $250,000 after 5 years, and these guys will be highly motivated, highly positive, highly intelligent, speak multiple languages, and always extremely motivated about their position, like a pro football player, pro athlete. Highly, highly skilled. That's what we need. The next level of protection in terms of policing will come from highly skilled operators that are focused on prevention of violence and death and have the skills to do it.
Well, Mr. Brown, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Where can folks learn more about your organization?
We are threatmanagementcenter.com, threatmanagementcenter.com. And you can also look up, we have about 500 videos on YouTube. And nice. Please go to our website and also on Facebook, Vipers Threat Management.
Well, I do want to thank you again, and maybe someday we can have you back in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, folks, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for listening. And please, once again, do like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on both iTunes and YouTube. And to play us out today, as an homage to my great-grandfather, who was born 91 years ago this month, we are going to play a song by the late, great Bobby Kay. Hope you enjoy.